Welcome to the third video from me commemorating the memory of Southampton Sega Park. This time we're going to talk about the years 2002 to 2007. Before I do that though, there are four other games I forgot to mention in my last videos. Jurassic Park The Lost World, good light gun game there from Sega. Really wish they had a stand-up cabinet for that because sitting down all that time and trying to shoot really ruins your aim and hurts your arms. Virtua Cop, old game there from 94 but replayed in 99. Really enjoyed getting that high score of 9999999. Something good to show off to your friends as you take them past the machine. Crisis Zone from the end of 99. That's a good light gun game there from Namco. Enjoyed that machine gun peripheral. First zone shooter that I really got into from them. A lot more better players than me, but fun while it lasted anyway. And Capcom vs SNK2. That was a demo briefly that came in and replaced Capcom vs SNK1. £1 ago, didn't really understand that for a demo game. I never can why they charge full price for stuff like that. It was a 6-button game but wired as a 4-button game. Didn't understand why they just didn't put a little note on there and a cheaper price, and we would have happily would have been, you know, a lot more content. Why we had to find that out for ourselves, I don't know. Okay, let's talk about 2002 then. A lot of changes were made at Sega Park this time. As I mentioned in my last video, Sega themselves were no longer running their Sega Parks. It was franchised out to a company called the Leisure Exchange. They made a lot of changes. The biggest change was the expansion of gambling. There was always nudger machines in Sega Park that caused a lot of problems. People used to bang them to get the coins out and the staff used to get upset. Well, that happens in all arcades. However, in 2002 there was a big expansion in gambling. Part of the arcade was cut off and became an over-18s casino area. No real problem with that. If they need to diversify to keep the place running, then that's fine. It's a compromise we have to make. I have to say I did not like the low-cost, low-payout fruit machines that under-18s can play scattered all over the arcade. It brought, we had gang elements in there. I mean, I had no personal problems with the gang. I was older than most of the gang members were, and it was always a case of I don't bother you, you don't bother me. So I'm lucky in that respect. I believe if they had had all those low-cost, low-payout machines in a separate area that was heavily managed by security, I think the place would have had a better atmosphere. But so yes, the innocence of Sega Park has really been lost in these years, 2002 to 2013. But anyway, we won't dwell on that too much. You know, they had to do it. I just wish they'd have done it a little bit better. Okay, 2002, what was I playing in that year? King of Route 66, the sequel to 18-Wheeler. Great big rig game there. Met a crazy Chinese guy by the name of Grandmaster Trevor. That's what I'll call him anyway. Always seemed to be high on caffeine. Was quite an older guy, wasn't technologically savvy, wasn't really sort of into video games, but he really enjoyed that one. He liked shouting the instructions to the CB radio that was working at the time before everybody broke it. Good stuff there, not much to say about it. I did write an FAQ for that, so I'll put the link below if you want to have a look at that. Air Tricks. That came in 2002 as well. I think that was a game from 2001. Good little skating game there from Sega, sort of the sequel to Top Skater. Used to go bingo, 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 bingo as you went up and down the half pipe. Used to make a noise. A lot more better players than that than me. I can't say I ever took it that seriously, but good stuff from Sega nevertheless. What else in 2002? Well, it was the introduction of the memory card, which I'll just lean forward and grab now. This is the arcade memory card. The game that introduced it at Sega Park Southampton was Initial D Arcade Stage version 1. I have to say, I really wasn't that, you know, I was a bit confused as to why that game sort of had the praise that it did. It's quite a basic game as far as I was concerned, as far as driving was. I have to admit I wasn't much of a driving fan. I liked the courses, I liked the cars, the music was okay. It did sound some of the time like something you get at the end of Eurotrash, that old 90s naughty program that used to be on Channel 4. Never really understood though why everybody raved about it in the way that they did. A lot of the hardcore players, the ex-Street Fighter players in Sega Park loved that game. I played it a few times, had a couple of cars on memory card, spent quite a bit of money on that. Have to say though, I really wasn't, you know, amazed by it that much, so I let it go in the end and let the better players supersede me. So that was all right, you know. I just, you know, just have to emphasise again, I never really understood why that was so popular, but it was a good racing game nevertheless. Okay, what else in 2002? Virtua Fighter 4. I have to say I had to skip that game. It was £1 a go. I couldn't really justify spending a lot of money on that to get good at it. It's just something that I just had to sort of draw the line there, unfortunately. So I'd like to have given that more place, but I couldn't. Mazan Flash of the Blade towards the end of that year. That was a great slash 'em up there from Namco. Really loved that samurai sword. I wrote an FAQ for that game. You can have a look at the link below. That was really enjoyed that. That really sort of made the year for me. Otherwise it wouldn't have been that good a year, but Mazan, Flash of the Blade, great stuff. There's a guy that I started having a score challenge with. It became quite adversarial, I have to admit. I used to call this guy the rabbi because he had this sort of big long beard. I don't think he spoke English at all, but he used to give me these really, really bad stare downs, and I used to sort of do the same to him. And it shouldn't have really got that bad. We should have probably said hello to each other and sort of just been a bit more friendly. But I guess if you don't speak English, it's sort of difficult to sort of, you know, be socially interactive in that way. But I think it should have been lighter than it actually was. It perhaps got a little bit too heavy-handed. But I'll talk about that a little later on. Okay, 2003. That was the year of the big three. What are the big three? Well, House of the Dead 3, you can see there. Time Crisis 3, you can see there. And Virtua Cop 3. So that's the big three light gun games. Had a fantastic time with those games. Spent loads of money on all of them. House of the Dead, I used to prolong that game for about 30 or 40 minutes. That's how long each credit used to last, so I could get those really high scores. Time Crisis 3, I really found that a hard game to get high scores on. Really, really tough game for me. Probably the first, you know, Time Crisis game that I really got into apart from Crisis Zone. I managed to get a 3 million score. And it stayed in the arcade on the arcade scoreboard for about 7 or 8 years. It was actually burned into the screen itself. It had been up there for so long. Nobody really sort of played that game like I did. But even that's, you know, that score is nothing compared to what the Hong Kong players and some of the guys in London were getting. Have to give a mention out to a guy called CCY, great London player there. You gave me loads of tips on the Game FAQs forums back in the day. So whatever you're doing now, I hope you're doing really well. Thank you very much for those tips. I really do appreciate it. Great stuff. Virtua Cop 3, another game you could get the 9999999 score on. Got that quite a few times. Remember some drunk Australian guy playing that with me, used to swearing his head off because the game wasn't like Time Crisis. Well, no, it wasn't like Time Crisis, because if it was Time Crisis, it would be called Time Crisis. It's Virtua Cop 3. It's all good though. Great memories with those 3 games. This is also the year that the manageress left. She'd been there since 1996. She went off to start a family. If you're out there now and watching this video, great stuff. You did the best job you could. I understand that, you know, it wasn't sort of fun dealing with your head office, but, you know, you did the best you could in the circumstances, so well done to you. I hope you're doing really well at the moment. That was when she left, the day she left, that we had the last free play night with a DJ. Good stuff there. I was able to play House of the Dead 3 to a high level. Good stuff there. Good memories. Border Down. Now that was a funny game to bring into Sega Park. That was a shmup game. Something you'd really expect to see, something like the Casino Arcade, that's unfortunately going to be closing down sometime soon in London. £1 a go, probably too expensive for what it was. I remember putting that on the hardest setting and putting £1 in. I lasted 5 seconds, it only gave you 1 life. If that had been a lot cheaper and they had some English translation beside the machine on the wall, I think it would have done a lot better. But those type of games never really do well at arcades anyway, and they really should have been a specialist arcade. But interesting to see, and I enjoyed it anyway, even though it probably made no money. Beachhead 2000, absolutely garbage game there from, I don't know, forget who did it. Was it? I have no idea, probably Global VR or something. That was a really, really subpar PC game that was stuck into this elaborate cabinet. It's a case of, you know, nice cabinet, shame about the game. Everybody played that though. It really made a lot of money, which I never understand why, because the game was so unbalanced and poor. It was, like I said, it was a very basic PC game that somebody knocked up in about 10 minutes. So how on earth that made the money it did, I don't know, but there you go. That's people's taste for you. Another dreadful game, we had Hog Wild Chase Up, probably the worst game that I've seen in Sega Park. A really budget PS1 title type game. You just went along this motorcycle knocking all these people off. Very, very poorly done. The sort of thing you really expect, you know, budget PC or PlayStation 1 game. Hog Wild Chase Up, it shouldn't have been called that. It should have been called Hog Wild Pig Shit, because that's exactly what it was. Okay, let's get away from that game and talk about something a bit better. Demolish Fist, I remember that game as well, sort of side-scrolling beat-em-up from Sammy and Dimps. This is when Sega had merged with Sammy, so we got a lot of Sammy games coming into the arcade. Didn't really enjoy that one. Again, it was £1 to go, too expensive. The graphics looked worse than Zombie Revenge, so I couldn't really get into that. If it was a little bit cheaper, I might have, but I wasn't prepared to pay £1 to go for something that looked worse than a game they had about 3 or 4 years ago. Battle Gear 3, another good racer there. This time I think that was from Taito. Never understood why they took the save element out of that. They had this little, like, instead of the card save I showed you a moment ago, it had a sort of key save that you put in. It had that all turned off, so it was basically like playing a racing game like Gran Turismo without a memory card. So it was just dumb. I know one of the security guards really got into that, and he was a lot better than me, so I'll give props to him. But I couldn't really get into that game without the save function being present. It just more or less crippled it. What else in that year? It was Derby Owners Club. This was a big, giant satellite game that was brought in. That took up a lot of space in the arcade. Very, very expensive. I think that would have cost about 150,000. So I think they had it on a special rental deal there from Sega. Tried to get into that horse racing simulation. It's difficult for me. It's not what I consider an arcade game. It did make a little bit of money, but I don't think they ever made their money back on that. They couldn't do because it was just so expensive. There's not much else to say about that. I know some players really, really got into that. Some players in America spending 24 hours a day on that machine. They must have been very, very rich. Again, I just couldn't get into it. If they had a sort of smaller cabinet there, I think it would have been a lot better. The fact you had to buy all these special cards, each play used to cost about £2 or £3 to get the best out of it. So no, didn't really enjoy that at all, I have to say. All right for a few casual plays, but I couldn't play it hardcore like some of the guys in Bournemouth and Southampton did. Okay, 2003 was really the last year that Sega Park was at the forefront of getting the latest games in very quickly. The latest games would still come in, but there would be a delay. They would just sort of get them at the same time as every other arcade in the south of the country would. So that's the time when, unfortunately, a lot of the test games disappeared from Sega Park. It would just be the stuff that would be coming in, and there would be some delays of 2 or 3 months, which I'll talk about in the next year. Again, I'll mention briefly again the Rabbi guy. Really, really hardcore sort of face down with him on those big free games: Virtua Cop free, Time Crisis free, House of the Dead free. Don't think it should have got that bad. If you're out there, comment below. I'd like to hear from you. Sorry that it did seem a bit adversarial. Hopefully you'll recognise those as good times in the way that I do. Okay, so the graphics on the screen are going to change behind me. I'm just going to disappear below because I think you know what game is coming next. Thank you very much for watching. See you in a moment. Of course. I mean, is there anything more that needs to be said? Absolutely not. Not at all. Not at all. You know the game that we're talking about. We're now into the year 2004. And of course, the game of 2004 in Sega Park. You know what it is. It is Outrun 2. That's right. I'll say it 3 times. Outrun 2. Outrun 2. Outrun 2. Absolutely fantastic game. One of the only games in my life that I think has ever lived up to the hype. Fantastic stuff from Sega. I will have to say that by the time it came into Sega Park, I was actually a bit of an Outrun 2 veteran. It came into an arcade called Leisure World a few months earlier. Apparently Derby Owners Club broke down. They replaced it with the 4-player Outrun 2, and my God, I don't think the place ever looked back because that made quite a lot of money. It was a 4-player setup. I was hardcore attacking that with the on time attack mode. Really, really, really fantastic stuff. The first arcade proper racer, if you want to call it that I really, really got into. Never mind initially, Outrun 2 was everything at that particular time. It was the culmination of of everything that Sega had been doing in terms of racing. Fantastic stuff, beautiful arcade action. I absolutely loved it. I know a lot of initial D players weren't really keen on it, but you know what? They can like their games, I like mine. Outrun 2 was fantastic. I absolutely adored it. I can't emphasise that enough. Outrun 2 probably was the best game that I ever played at Sega Park. I really wish that had come in, 99, 2001. It would have been amazing if it had. I know the graphics weren't up to standard then, but that would have been an absolute treat for me. So Outrun 2, wonderful. I was playing that game almost all throughout the year, even when the Xbox version came out. Towards the end of the year, I remember noticing a guy standing behind me looking at my techniques. VR, I know you're watching this video. We've had great times over the last sort of 8 or 9 years. It's been fantastic meeting you in person and talking online. Team Avit, you know who you are. Thanks very much. I know you came in sort of when the Xbox was around, but absolutely brilliant stuff. Also, I must mention racegame.org. That's where the Hong Kong players were at the time. When Outrun 2 first came out, there's really no information on the net, and I had to sort of go to these forums that were all in Chinese. I had to translate them through Babelfish as it was at the time, or Google Translate. It was, wow. Really, really good times. Thank you for all the tips you gave me, guys. Thank you for making me the player that I was. I know there's players that have superseded me now, and that's no bad thing, but, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Outrun 2 was absolutely fantastic. Outrun 2 was 2004, I know it came out a year earlier in other arcades, but That's when it came into Southampton. It came into Leisure World first, then came a few months later into Sega Park, where I began playing it most of the time. So wonderful, wonderful 4-player units. You know, I can't emphasise that enough. Outrun 2 was wonderful. The best game I think I've ever played at Sega Park. So thank you. Thank you very much for those memories. It's been an absolutely beautiful journey. Okay, so I can't dwell on too much about Outrun 2 because this is really a video about Sega Park, although I do want to keep talking about it. What else was I playing in that year? Initial D version 3 came in. We never got version 2 in. Version 2 is actually probably the most popular of the Initial D ones, so we skipped that, went straight to version 3. I have to say, by that particular time, there weren't really many players left. All the old Street Fighter players had gone from the arcade for good, the few stragglers that were remaining in those years. Some good Chinese players on that, I must admit. I can't really ever say that. I've never really got into the game, so I can't really comment any more than that. Wangan Midnight, that was also another sort of similar style to Initial D, although it was on sort of Japanese highways. Played that a few times, got a few memory cards for that. Again, I had to sort of give that up because I lost my job sort of the middle of that year. Sort of the place I was working for ran out of money and I was got let go at a moment's notice. That's life, unfortunately. Can't say I missed it too much, but some very good players on that, and you know who you are, especially that sort of Chinese girl, that really great smile he had. It looked like a manga cartoon. It was fantastic. So you know who you are. Good stuff there. Need for Speed. Oh, god-awful game there. Sort of, that was Global VR converting an EA game. This is when Need for Speed Underground had come out on the consoles. Why on earth they had to get this really old, ancient Need for Speed game that had a really bad frame rate? No, not good at all. No, that lasted all of 2 weeks, and thank God that, you know, Outrun absolutely wiped the floor with that, thankfully. What else in that year? Tokyo Cop. So-so game there from Gallico. Never really enjoyed their games that much. I think it was a good, you know, good take on the Chase HQ games, those old classic chaser games, but it never really pulled it off. Nice graphics, nice idea, a little bit more better execution. I think it would have been a good game, but otherwise it unfortunately was very so-so, I'm afraid. That was 2004. I'm sure there are other games there, but 2004 basically was Outrun 2, so that's that, I'm afraid. 2005, well, Outrun 2 SP. I know that's Outrun 2 2006 there, but Outrun 2 SP was the game of 2005 in Sega Park. Another fantastic title there. Spent loads of money on that one as well. Had the big yellow sit-down cabinets with the gear flaps on the wheels. That game lasted there from 2005 up till it closed this year, so it really must have made a lot of money, which was great to see. Good for the casual and the hardcore players like myself. Again, a lot of the Initial D and Wangan guys weren't into that. I was probably the exception to that. So again, Sega, thank you very much. Outrun 2 SP, wonderful stuff. Great times on Hard Attack. Do you remember VR? No, you're watching when I did that sort of Hard Attack run on course E, and I didn't have that pen, and you gave me that pen, and we got, I think it was at the time it was a 4th position on the internet ranking board. Fantastic stuff. Thank you for that pen. Remind me not to steal work stationery again. Really thank you very much for that, and I know you had a good time with those games in the way that I did, and it's been again a beautiful journey. So Outrun 2 SP, what more can I say? I don't need to see any more. You can see the games behind me. It was absolutely, it was Sega, that was Sega Park. Fantastic stuff, brilliant times. The only disappointment would be is I don't think any subsequent games would really live up to that. They couldn't. I mean, it's sort of Sega's crowning moment. Yeah, I won't go on too much about that, but you know my feelings on Outrun, I'm sure. I've gone on it long enough now. So, okay, 2005, what else was there? Ghost Squad. That was a good little shooter, light gun game there from Sega. I'd really sort of become a racing fan at that point, so I really wasn't given as much time as I wanted to. Ghost Squad, I'm sure everybody who owns a Wii knows that game. This is my original Ghost Squad memory card there. Good game, never really as good as the hardcore players in London or Hong Kong. I gave it my best shot, but there were better players around in the country elsewhere as well, so would have liked to give that some more time. Perhaps I'll buy it on the Wii, but you know, otherwise than that, it was good stuff. I really enjoyed those sort of panda costumes. Not sure why I had to level up all the time on that. I had to spend so much money. Not really sure that sort of worked in that way. But you know, it was a good light gun game for what it was. I really enjoyed those sort of heavy, sort of House of the Dead freestyle sort of guns. I know these were sort of like the assault rifle style guns, but that was good, and I'll have to get that for the Wii because I want to give that more time that I should have back then. But Outrun 2 was everything at that time. No more Outrun, I won't mention it anymore. Well, I will, but... Okay, another game that I should mention as well in 2005, Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune. Now, I rave about Outrun, but I actually spent more money on Wangan Midnight 2 than I did on SP. The reason why, I think I was probably trying to sort of attack some of the internet ranking times. I thought I had a chance of getting anywhere near them. Sadly, that didn't turn out to be the case, but, you know, I really, you know, tried my best on that. Probably spent more money than I actually should have, and I'll tell you the total sum in a minute, because 2005 was the biggest spend year for me that I ever did in Sega Park. Good game nevertheless. Had some good matches against some of the hardcore Hong Kong players. They beat me most of the time, but you know, it's all good and it's all good fun. And again, that man with a great smile. I hope you're watching and having a good time as well. I've seen one of the old players around in town still. So if you're watching this video, comment below. Nice to know what you're doing now. So thanks for the good times. Even though you did beat me and I got my ass handed to me like I used to do on Street Fighter back in the day, it was always good to, you know, to play against someone as passionate as the game that I was. Okay, what else in 2005? Tekken 5. Couldn't really say I got into that. I think that was £1 to go again. You know, I couldn't justify spending that sort of money on that game. You know, it was all right. I don't think Tekken 5 ever really did well in Sega Park, I'm afraid. There's a few hardcore players on that, but by that time the fighting scene was completely dead. Nobody was there anymore, and no, unfortunately Tekken 5 didn't work out well. I had a few plays on it, but nothing really serious. LA Machine Gunners, they brought a lot of old games back in. They started changing the price of the old games back to 50p. Why on earth they raised them to £1 in the first place? Around about 2002, I don't know. They had Crazy Taxi at £1. They had other stuff at £1, like Virtua Fighter 4. Stupid decision. They changed it back to these older games back to 50p, like sort of Daytona and Sega Rally. But you know, the damage had been done. LA Machine Gunners didn't really play that much because I played that a lot of times at the old Leisure World arcade that had it in there sort of way back when. Good game. My friends got it on the Wii, so I'll probably give that more time of day when I get the chance to play it, of course. Daytona USA 2, great Japanese players by the name of Team Marabaka. Forgot to mention them earlier. You were brilliant, guys. Your videos really helped us play Outrun to a really high level. Fantastic stuff there. So, you know, wonderful guys for, you know, taking the time to actually put those videos online and, you know, to be able to film in an arcade, to sort of link the machines up to videotape recorders and camcorders and DVD recorders and laptops. You know, we couldn't even take photos in Sega Park, I mean on mobile phones, to be honest, and you were able to sort of get the arcade owners persuaded to link up all those sort of video recording equipment. You know, fantastic stuff, and thank you very much for putting those videos online. You're great. Haven't heard much from you recently. I'm sure you're all busy men, so, you know, but if you're out there watching, great times. Thank you very much for those. You made me the Outrun and Outrun 2 SP player that I am, so wonderful stuff. Okay, let's go into the next year now. Pause. Okay, so moving on now to 2006. What was I playing in that year? House of the Dead 4. Really enjoyed playing that one, sort of like the machine gun peripheral on that one, little mini assault rifles. Have to say though that I was playing that sort of many months before in Portsmouth. They got in there quite quickly after it was released. So as I mentioned before, Sega Park weren't getting in the latest games in really quickly now that we're having to wait for them. So by the time House of Dead 4 came, I was already a veteran on that game, so they didn't get as much money off me as they normally would. Good game nevertheless. I had to say I struggled with that one. Wasn't able to get anywhere near sort of the London or the Hong Kong players, but you know, that was sort of when I was really into racing games at that point, and I have to say that you know, House of the Dead 4 unfortunately didn't really sort of play that to the level that I wanted to, but I did the best I could with the skills that I had, and wish I was better, but you know, I have to take my hat off to the guys that sort of wiped my floor of the score. But you know, it doesn't matter now. It's you know, it's all good memories, and you know, I saw you guys play in London. Your accuracy was absolutely phenomenal and very scary as well. So I knew that sort of it was time for me to bow out of light gun games at that point. But I knew that it was in safe hands with superb players like yourself. So good stuff there. 2006, it was the beginning of the end, unfortunately. I don't think anything could live up to the Outrun experience you see behind me. I think generally sort of things were beginning to change. We had the Xbox 360, PS3, Wii had been released at this point. HD TV, that's a big one. A lot of people don't forget about that. When HD TV came about, a lot of the arcades in Sega Park started looking really old. And I think Leisure Exchange, sort of in charge of the state, sort of the Sega Park name had expired by that point, but the Sega Park name was still kept for whatever reason. Perhaps a blind eye was turned, I guess. So Sega Park really wasn't Sega Park by this point. It was just Sega Park in name only. It was just like every other arcade you get sort of anywhere around the country. But there was still one or two good times to be had. So House of Dead 4 I mentioned there. WCCF, giant satellite football game similar to Derby Owners Club, as I mentioned earlier on. You had to buy even more cards for that one. I think that would have done pretty well if it was a lot cheaper. They had even had a guide in, sort of telling me that I could have blue and black and green cards. You know, it's probably the first arcade game that I'd seen actually had, you know, an assistant for that particular game that sort of came along with it. If they had more things, if they had, every game had that, I think a lot of arcade games would do a lot better. But I guess they had no choice because it cost so much money. But never really got into WCCF. I know that's a Sega game, but football simulations, I just don't know if they belong in an arcade or not. It just seems a bit of a strange concept to me. I guess it makes money in Japan, but in the UK, only a few arcades, or where there's a big Chinese community, it would work. But alright, I guess. Didn't get into it at all. Not much of a football fan, so that's all I'll say about that. Soul Calibur 2 came in that year. I know it was 50p ago, but you know, it was 4 years too late, guys. Sorry, but I was playing that in Bournemouth back in 2002 when it was first released in their Sega Park. Took 4 years to get in. By that point, everybody was moved on, had it on a console, and Soul Calibur 3 was out anyway. So why bother? You know, I'm sorry, guys, but you know, it just didn't do it for me. 50p. I know it was cheap. It was like the old play price, but for a 4-year-old game, I'm sorry, I couldn't justify it. Let's Go Jungle. That was another good one there from Sega. Quite a casual shooting game. Similar to the Ocean Hunter from way back when. Good graphics on that. I think at the time that sort of, you know, just did supersede the Xbox 360 games of that particular era. Yeah, enjoyed that. Couldn't really take it seriously because it had that sort of funny, sort of giant sort of cannon gun that you sort of, you know, had to use both hands to maneuver. Other than that, it was a good fun game, so really enjoyed that one, Sega. Couldn't really take it seriously though, but good to play with one of your friends. Okay, so that was 2006 in a nutshell. Again, I probably played more games at that time, but again, I was sort of really into playing Outrun at home, so sort of Sega Park came less and less relevant for me. 2007, Time Crisis 4 came in. You know, I'll have to be honest with you, that was, you know, I didn't have any interest in that. It come in Bournemouth about a year earlier. They had it there at one of their peer arcades. Leisure World have it as well, and were charging £2 to go, and I think that's what put me off. I think that was sort of the, you know, sort of the real decline for me at that point when Time Crisis 4 came out. I didn't really want to play it. It was by the time Sega Park had it, you could get it on PS3 anyway. My friend had one, so why would we want to spend £1 in Sega Park to play it? They got it in early. I would have given it a lot of time. I may have really enjoyed it, but it came in late, so sorry guys, had to pass on that one too. Daytona USA I was playing again at that point, towards the end of the year. That's when I will make a confession right now, that's when I began to notice the difference between Daytona USA 2001 and Daytona USA. That's because I put Daytona USA 2001 away after playing it in 2001, 2002. I didn't really notice the difference at that point, but it's thanks to Marabaku and your videos that I was able to get, you know, really good at Daytona USA in the arcade and start playing that again. So great times. So that's really 2002 to 2007 as best as I can remember it. It was more difficult for me this time than my other videos, even though it was more recent. I think because Outrun 2, as you can see behind me, I will mention again, you know, wow, what can you say? 2005, I mentioned, was my biggest spend year. I was also playing Daytona USA 2 again, you know, thanks to those videos from Marabaku. I think in that year, on Outrun 2 SP, Wangad Midnight Maximum Tune, and of course Daytona USA 2, I spent a total of £2,000 in that year on those games. I have to say that probably was too much. I think it was a bit excessive. I probably will never do that again, and thankfully in the 2006, 2007, you know, I wasn't spending nearly that sort of money, so I think it was just really a one-off, but fantastic time. Thank you very much for those for those memories, Sega. This is probably the point where it's going to be my next video. I'll discuss sort of the decline from 2007 to 2013. It's going to be a very difficult video for me to do because I really wasn't there that much. You know, the arcade just become like every other arcade in the south. But I'll give you the chance to talk about the other arcades I visited, what Sega Park could have done better, if anything, and sort of the main reason why they eventually closed, something that was out of their control. But great times there to share, all the way from 1996 through to 2007. 11 years of fantastic memories. Still one more video to come. Thank you very much for watching. I believe that Sega Park really deserves a good send-off because it gave me such fantastic gaming memories. I know a lot of people would kill for the memories that I have to spend, you know, have an arcade like Sega Park there. I know we used to moan about it, but we didn't know how lucky we were. So thank you very much. Long live Sega Park. Long live Outrun 2. Long live Sumo Digital. Fantastic memories. Thank you very much. You'll never be forgotten. Look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care for now. Bye-bye.